I like to argue.
We all underestimated how hard it is to, one, win college football games, and two, transition and take over a program.
Mike Schaefer.
I was trying to kindly tell Mr. Bishop the Vikings have a chance to surprise some people, and I think that they could even win the division.
Mike Schaefer.
It doesn't seem like the kind of book where they would be hooked on meth. That got dark.
Mike Schaefer.
There's one Viking that surprised some people today.
Oh, here we go. Stibbs wants to really get into this.
It's just a joke.
Mike Schaefer, ladies and gentlemen,
Hey, Schaefer.
joining us live
Nice
from,
How we doing?
Palatial Estate. Hello.
I'm good.
I am. I'm doing well. We can dive right into Kirk Cousins' comments if you would like.
Well, we haven't actually had a chance to get to them yet. And Josh has not heard this audio.
I just read the initial quote.
Yeah, a lot of the stories obviously are in the quote. So why don't we bring up the
live
audio
on the air?
Yeah, why not? We can do that. We can bring up. So this is from the Kyle Brandt 10 Questions podcast that he did with Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins, and it's getting all the run today in the media. Here is Kirk Cousins, about a minute long.
On that spectrum, if 1 is the person who says masks are stupid, you are all a bunch of lemmings, and 10 is I'm not leaving my master bathroom for the next 10 years, where do you land?
I'm not going to call anybody stupid for the trouble it could get me in, but I'm about a 0.000001. Yeah.
Really? How come?
Yeah. I just, I want to respect what other people's concerns are. But for me personally, if you're just talking, no one else can get the virus. What is your concern if you could get it? I would say I'm going to go about my daily life. If I get it, I'm going to ride it out. I'm going to let nature do its course. Survival of the fittest kind of an approach, and just say, if it knocks me out, it knocks me out. I'm going to be okay. Even if I die, I die. I kind of have peace about that. So that's really where I fall on it. So my opinion, wearing a mask and is really about being respectful to other people. It really has nothing to do with my own personal thoughts.
All right. So here's my quick take. It sounds a lot less benign than it read this morning. There's my quick take. Schaefer?
Yeah.
Is this the first time you've heard it, by the way?
No, Josh sent me the message right away. He's got like Kirk Cousins alerts on his phone, I think, which is weird. I don't know why, but maybe he does like to make fun of looking for a quarterback here when Dak is at a, they let him go. Kirk Cousins could end up in Dallas, and they could finally find glory hole. So I think that's why he has the Kirk Cousins alerts on his phone. But no, I saw that quote, and I kind of agree with you, John. Like the splashing around the if I die aspect of it really makes him look stupid. And even what he said, I don't agree with at all. But he did at the very end say it's a respect thing. He does it out of respect of other people, even if he doesn't necessarily believe that it's something he needs to be doing, which is sort of the most important part of all of it. Like his own belief as to whether it's necessary or not, but he backs it up by the fact that he also says that he wears a mask. I don't know. I mean, it's something that can run a news cycle on a slow Wednesday. I don't know if it's a huge deal. I also know just from other comments he made, I don't know if Kirk Cousins and I agree on a lot of things. But I don't really care about this. I thought it was smart of the Minnesota Vikings to make him available for comment today, so he had at least a chance to sort of talk to the media about what he said, so it didn't completely spiral out of control. But it is kind of a unique way to more or less start your NFL coverage today, I guess, if you will. I thought a weird sort of phrasing of the question from Kyle Brandt to begin with. But
right. And because I don't think Cousins answered the question in the spirit in which it was asked.
No, he did not.
Because I think he was trying to talk about, basically it's a scale of 1 to 10. How worried are you of getting sick? That's how Cousins answered the question. But the way the question was asked was more on the political spectrum of mask wearing is stupid all the way to,
Never leave the house.
whatever he classified as the other extreme. So I think the way the question was asked was different in the way that the question was answered. That's how I read.
Yeah, I don't think it's a huge deal, but it's certainly for a guy who can't seem to stay out of his own way, whether it's his words or his play on the field in primetime, as Josh loves to note. It's not particularly helpful. But I guess what matters to me is that he's at least an adequate quarterback, and for a team that is destined to finish 8-8 or worse, that's fine.
Man, first of all, they're going to win the division, and I feel very confident in saying
Why?
that.
Why? What possible reason are they going to win the division?
All right, so I don't know about you. I don't trust the Lions, and I don't trust the Bears. So, right there.
Wow, you picked two easy ones there.
No, I'm starting. I'm eliminating two. It's like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
50%, yeah.
50% of the league or the division I eliminate.
Sure.
I think that the Packers are in for a lot of regression. You look at their record last year, and you look at the Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem. Hey, that matters. And I used it as a reason why 2016 Nebraska was going to improve. And what did they do? They improved a lot. Don't make fun of it.
Is this your whole I picked overtime in the Super Bowl prediction?
No, I'm just saying there's regression.
The blind hog finds the corn by morning.
There's regression built in with the Packers. So I guess I'm just surprised that Schaefer doesn't think that there's regression built in with the Packers.
Well, my concern is that the Minnesota Vikings didn't do a whole lot to get better for the 2020 season, and they were sort of a team that beat the teams that they were supposed to last year, and then other than the Saints at the end of the year, largely struggled with playoff-like opponents. Their schedule didn't get easy for the 2020 season. You look at how they start. You go Green Bay, Colts, Titans, Texans, your first four games. I mean, and then I think their fifth game is another playoff team from last year. Those are all teams with winning records that returned from last year. Minnesota doesn't have a single cornerback. Their first three, and as bad as Xavier Rhodes was last year, it's still having experience at the position is important. They don't have a single cornerback returning. Anthony Barr will still be putting coverage on slot receivers at some point during the year. It will go poorly. They don't have a defensive tackle that they like on the roster. That might be the middle of the defense. Seems to matter. And then they didn't fix their offensive line. So, they traded their best wide receiver, or at least the one most likely to play 16 games in a season compared to Adam Thielen. They replaced it with a rookie wide receiver who could be very good down the line, but we've seen rookie wide receivers haven't been very good immediately, or usually aren't very good immediately. They have a pretty boring offense that if Dalvin Cook doesn't take over the game, then it falls on to Kirk Cousins, who no one here in this four square of us would bet their life on in a game-winning drive down by 5 with 2 minutes to go. Bishop apparently is
a huge Kirk Cousins fan now. Of course he's gonna say he's the best quarterback in the entire league.
Again, here we go. With Josh. I defend him one time, and now I'm Mr. Kirk Cousins.
You know what I heard? Well, first of all, yes, this is going to be the new bit. But you know what I heard? First of all, Schaefer, you rooted against college football happening. Now I hear you rooting against the Vikings winning the division this year. It honestly, it makes me sick.
I would love to be wrong. I would absolutely love to be wrong.
If only your name was Josh Peterson.
Yeah, I just don't think they're very good.
It's a virtual lock.
So, and look, someone has to win that division. So the Vikings could do it at 8-8.
See, that's the thing. I think Josh's whole argument is
it's a bad division.
It's a bad division.
But it was a bad division last year, and they didn't win it. And they barely made the playoffs.
The Packers won 13 games.
But the Packers overperformed last year.
But the Vikings got worse from also overperforming last year.
I would say this. I think
I'll take the Lions.
I think Josh is underestimating both the Lions and the Bears.
No one's ever underestimated Mitchell Trubisky. So
well, that's the thing. I
just don't trust
who's
him.
to say
Nick Foles?
If it's Nick Foles.
I mean, give him a shot. Nick Foles might actually do something.
Nick Foles is
the Jaguars fan that said the exact same thing that John just did, and then they basically had a 17 interception.
He got hurt, didn't he?
Yeah.
He did get hurt last year.
Yeah, he got hurt.
Yeah.
And we found out the Jaguars were imploding. I don't know if the Bears defense is imploding.
Not at all.
Well, they don't have Vic Fangio, so
sure don't.
The one reason that I could possibly feel good about the Vikings is that they'll do probably no worse than 8-8, despite my general tweeting of 4-12 as often as I possibly can. And the coaching advantage that they have with Mike Zimmer versus the rest of that division, it's still pretty enormous.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were going to sell me on that, I could kind of understand it. But I just don't see them as anything much better than an 8-8 team, and that schedule is difficult. Like if they lose to the Packers to start with, they could be 1-3 in their first 4 games.
What are their first 4 games? I haven't looked at that.
Yeah, it's the Packers, the Colts, the Titans, and the Texans. Those are their first 4 games. Those are all losable. Their 5th game is another the Seahawks. I mean, they could be 0-5.
Oh my gosh! Good Lord! By the way, I'm looking at the latest odds.
Great.
The Vikings are they have the best odds in the division: +120. Packers at +175. Lions 4-1. Bears 5-1.
I
By the way,
don't.
Load up on the
congratulations.
Lions.
This is probably the only show in America that has taken the Kirk Cousins discussion and has now just completely thrown that off the table. And it's all about the viability of the Vikings as a division
Going to
champion.
the NFC North debate.
Well, it's sort of more interesting than whether we're going to debate masks or not at this point in
Absolutely.
September.
I would agree there. So let me proffer another item of debate.
Uh-oh.
What do we do with Pat 40?
I mean,
In all seriousness, how should we, as people here in Nebraska who follow Nebraska football,
Ignore him.
how do we what do we do with this guy?
well, I mean, I think the easiest thing people could do is to just not read Pat 40, which it's hard because there's this sort of affinity that Nebraska fans have for reading every single thing that has been written about their team, regardless of the source of which it emanates.
Yes.
So they can't help themselves but read Pat 40, even when they know that it's not going to particularly read well for Nebraska. So, yeah, I don't know. There's no way to convince people to not read them, but we don't have to give a whole lot of credit to anything Pat 40 does. And as I said the last time we brought up Pat 40 in one of these interviews, the entity that he works for represents Nebraska pretty well, in that it's trying to find its way back and has been struggling for a while. You think he'd be more sympathetic instead of making jackass jokes like he did in his last column.
Make Sports Illustrated Rick Riley again.
Pat 40, Rick Riley fell off the face of the earth when he left to go to ESPN.
Yeah.
Pat 40 is no Rick Riley. Pat 40,
Yeah, but Rick Riley never accused Nebraskans of being a bunch of tractor farmers.
That we
So
know.
Riley got hate mail from cheerleaders. I mean, he knows all about being hated by people.
yeah, that's probably true.
But
All right.
he's good at it.
So the answer is
Pat 40 is just like a sports writer version of a troll. Like you could replace him and his glorious hair with that sneering face that people use to represent trolls on the internet. That could be Pat 40.
Yeah, you know what he is? He's become Skip Bayless. And the thing that we all do with Skip Bayless is ignore him. So I get it. Skip doesn't talk about Nebraska, so it's a lot easier to want to read Pat 40 because
Exactly,
what's
but
he saying about me?
But I will say this. You watch anytime the Big Ten Network does one of these specials.
Oh, he's there.
He's been on there.
Sure.
So the
but
Big Ten
they also
Network.
put Jerry DiNardo on there. You don't have to watch that.
Jerry DiNardo is actually employed by the conference.
I was just trying to make
But my point is,
Yeah, he
they
does
bring
wrestling.
Pat 40 on as a voice of authority, as a voice who knows, a guy who is openly hostile to one of the conference's 14 members. I mean, that's pretty damning.
Hostile to what? Iowa because they cut sports in a weird effort to sort of make the Big Ten feel bad. That's what his whole point was with the line yesterday. Nebraska fired people because they want to make the Big Ten feel bad. They want to keep whining. There's not like a real economic reality to it. Like, I don't understand what his point is. And I don't understand why you would use people's real jobs, athletes' real sports, to try to score cheap points on your publication that you're that desperate to get people to read it, I guess. It's just pathetic. But part of my anger about this is that we spend so much time debating about bias in the media and debating about how the media goes about doing its job. And then you have these people who are just utterly reckless with how they choose to do it on an extremely well-known platform. And it makes it harder for people in the local media. I don't think people understand. Scott Frost isn't going to pop his head up for whack-a-mole anytime soon, based on what happened 3 weeks ago, based on the way that he was presented by Yahoo, by The Athletic, by ESPN, by Sports Illustrated. It makes it harder for those of us in the local market who have spent time cultivating that relationship, who already have less access now and will likely have less access going forward. And so that's where a lot of my anger emanates from. Because cheap shots from people who don't come to Lincoln as it is anyways. And then when they do, they make a big deal about the fact that they're coming to Lincoln because they know it matters to the people here, because they want to sell their subscriptions, they want to sell their views and everything else. And so it's embarrassing to me the way that this has played out. And for people to continue that, like Pat Forty has, it only continues to be embarrassing.
No, and Schaefer, you just hit on it too. Like that's obviously a huge part of this. What he is doing, what he is doing, because he knows that it's going to get a visceral reaction. And look, I am all for poking fun and like making fun of people. We just had some fun with Kirk Cousins. But when I am doing that, I am not like, yeah, I know that this is going to get the Viking fans coming after me. Like, I don't care about that. I just try to give my opinion and make jokes in the process. But he is obviously using Nebraska as this whole like, hey, they're going to click on the stories. They're going to read these stories. And you're so right about, hey, look at me. I'm in your town now, Nebraska. And so they use the Nebraska fan base, and you can say this about a handful of fan bases around the country. They use them to either, hey, I love you, or hey, I hate you. And they know either way they're going to get a lot of readers.
Well, a lot of this stems there. And I truly believe that it's more pronounced here than it is in a lot of other places for a variety of different reasons. And I won't get into all the reasons, but I'll just simply say Nebraskans have always sought a validity from the outside. They have always coveted the love and respect from the outside world, because this has always been flyover country. This has always been, we never make headlines. The only thing that gives us headlines is football. And so we want that validation. And when we don't get it, we feel like we've been jilted. And that's something that has gone back as long as I can remember, and probably before I was born. There's just always been this.
The 40s?
Yes.
No, the 30s. He was born in the 40s.
Oh, yeah. The Pat Ford. Thank you. But I think a lot of it comes from, the reason why Nebraskans will click on anything that has Nebraska in it is because we're always looking for validation.
Well, and look, we're lucky to have a job in this landscape where we have a fan base that truly cares. Think about how many people that they help employ. And
right.
I think it's cheap the way that this has gone about. And it bothers me. It bothers me because it makes my job tougher. But I also think it's just a patently unfair way to frame things. And I don't understand what the end game of it is, especially when you're talking about people who lost their jobs. Like, I don't get the point of taking shots for doing that. It doesn't make sense to me. And I'm someone who generally has no problems taking shots at a lot of things. But there are lines. People's livelihoods were ruined, and you're treating it like it's some sort of game. Like, why? I don't get it. It stopped being fun. It stopped being funny. It's just mean-spirited at this point.
Schaefer, kind of going back to why all this started this week. Why? My bad. I exited out on accident. What do you make of like all the varying reports out there about the Big Ten perhaps playing in October or playing in November? Like we discussed it a little bit yesterday, and like when they initially announced that they were punting on a fall season, I think a lot of us just assumed that spring meant March. And then like a week later, they started hearing about January. And then a couple weeks later, you start hearing about November. And now this week, we're hearing about October. Like, I guess what in there do you think is truth, and what in there do you think isn't truth?
Well, I think this is the ultimate truth. The Big Ten has a lot of leaks in their boat because there's
their yacht?
Anything that can be discussed that doesn't immediately make it back through one of 4 or 5 individuals. Seemingly, Dan Patrick and Sir Yacht are the ones that seem to have the most well-placed moles, so to speak. So, I'm actually kind of surprised because I found myself as someone who definitely thought spring football meant, February at the earliest. And then that might just be when you start to practice and then you kind of see where it goes from there. And then when they floated the idea of the the Thanksgiving start, I was all for that. And then you certainly had earlier this week with the potential of early October, and that was intriguing too. At this point, though, sort of like Connor Happer, my cohort over on the Recruiting Hour, and we've talked about this. It feels like we're in the same point where we were in April, where you're just kind of throwing stuff out there, and this could be true, that could be true. And it's kind of, as I did at that point, where I just sort of stopped paying attention to any of it, I'm gravitating towards that too, because they had how many months to make this decision? They didn't come up with a backup plan. They didn't have anything ready to go when they announced the cancellation of the season. And it feels like they're sort of just making stuff up as it goes along. Like, oh, well, if we meet this threshold, this many presidents are going to vote for it. It's just, I don't know. They've done real damage to their brand. And it's stunning to me that they're incapable of seeing this. And it's even more stunning to me that they can't rally the troops to kind of slow down some of these leaks and some of these conversations. And I think in part because people are just like, well, they don't have nothing to lose. No one's running this ship anyways. Everyone might as well talk. And that's basically what it's been. And it just looks bad for the conference as a whole.
Schaefer, I made you a very, what I thought it was a valid trade offer on Sunday. You never accepted it. And so I'm sorry, you're going to have to, we're keeping Jason Hayward and you're keeping Brad Hand. I made you that
Brad
trade.
Hand.
I thought it was a great trade offer, but now it's done. The trade deadline's done. You can't have.
You see, the Cleveland Indians are refusing to make any trades in which someone returns back to the team that costs more than the league minimum. And really, more than anything,
Hayward's making more than the league minimum.
they certainly don't want to potentially ruin what they have going, which is to try to collect as many players as possible and hope that two might be good enough at some point to trade for another collection of players, and then just hope to stumble into a postseason in which they aren't immediately swept because they only can score 4 runs across 3 games. It's a really unique strategy. We're going to see how it plays out. I don't anticipate it goes well for them, but hey, I'm already looking forward to Francisco Lindor posting a video, thanking the Cleveland fans for everything over the last 6 years come November.
Well,
so that going for it.
At least you have a Vikings 0-5 start to look forward
to. It's not great out here. There's no Big Ten football. I don't have my regular job going on. The Vikings are going to go 0-5 to start the year. Kirk Cousins isn't going to wear a mask, so that means Sean Mannion is going to have to play at some point. He's only going to prolong.
Slider.
Now you guys have angered him. Things just aren't good over here in the Schaefer.
This would have been the day for the
wedding planning.
This would have been the day for the Coors Brewery to catch fire.
Oh, wow.
That already happened.
I'm saying this would have been the day for that to happen.
That resulted in me trying to get Coors in bottles and nowhere having it because they had a shortage in terms of shipping. So
you can't find the stubbies? You can't find the stubbies here?
Well, this was a couple of weeks ago as this happened. I needed specifically to get a 6-pack of Coors in bottles for this thing I was doing as I was asking my groomsmen to be groomsmen. And my brother got the short end of the stick. I just rounded up a bunch of Coors cans that were in the back of the fridge, threw them all together, and that's what he got compared to everybody else.
By the way, have you ever, now you haven't seen the TV show Yellowstone, have you?
I have not. I've wanted to watch it, but I don't.
It's a really good show. Apparently, the thing out there is to call them Yellow Jackets. Coors Banquets call them Yellow Jackets because of the can color.
Well, and I've heard Buckskins is another one. Yellow Jackets.
I like Yellow Jackets.
People really they love the stubby bottle, so they'll call them Stubbies out in Colorado. So yeah, it's got a lot of different names, but everybody knows it has the same great taste every time.
Indeed, it does.
I had one last Saturday. And
nice.
It was wonderful.
I got some in the fridge at home.
It was wonderful.
There you go.
Schaefer, thank you, and we'll try not to let you be so miserable next week.
Look, I don't think it's whether you guys do anything or not. It's just any day that ends in Y, there's a good chance I could be in a bad mood.
100%.
Same.
Can confirm.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Husker 24/7. And the Recruiting Hour on some innocuous radio station.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
Somewhere not in Omaha.
Yes, exactly.
Somewhere not in Omaha.
Yep.
Dumb Debates is coming up.
Nice.
And Fired Up for Football is next
Nice.
on 1620 The Zone.